Can everyone hear? Oh, yes, I can hear. This is good, good. I'm getting lots of thumbs up. So I think we're going to start. If you put your headphones on, apparently it's very relaxing and it feels like you've got a podcast going on. And actually, there's quite a bit of background noise, so that would be better, wouldn't it? Anyway, hello, everybody. We're going to start now. My name is Kathleen Baird-Murray. I had to look at the card then to actually... The menopause talk is coming in a couple of talks' time, but yes. And I'm truly honoured to be here today to be able to host this talk, Face Value, which always makes me laugh, Face Value, because I wrote a novel about 20 years ago that was all about a plastic surgeon and a journalist, and it was called Face Value. Yeah, Kay remembers. But I have been writing about beauty for about 30 years. I'm also the founder of a new brand called La Pied Apothecary, which is very exciting. And I've always been fascinated by the world of beauty, by how we choose to get older, to grow older, how we choose to celebrate that. And so it's such a huge honor to have three very brilliant guests who are all coming at the same thing from a very different angle, and yet it's all focused, all with one goal in mind, which is to make us feel better about ourselves as we look in the mirror every morning. So I'm going to introduce everybody. Today I'm going to start introducing you to Kay. Kay Montano is a friend. We met socially many years ago in our 20s, and Kay was and is the coolest makeup artist out there. You might not know this, but her first job was on a set with Buffalo photographer Jamie Morgan, working for The Face. She was only 16 years old, and she then spent years jet-setting the world on shoots for magazines like Vogue before focusing on red carpet beauty for stars like Julianne Moore, Jennifer Connelly, Demi Moore, Rachel Weisz, Charlize Theron, and Naomi Harris, to name but a few. There are many more. She has always been a trailblazer, and she's always embraced healthy, holistic living long before the rest of us. And she once wrote a blog with actress Tandy Way Newton called Tandy K, which was brilliant and way ahead of its time. As an ambassador for Chanel, she continues to inspire us with her beautiful, natural makeup. I'm aware I'm not doing it justice, Kay, by describing it, but actually, even just before we came on, she was talking to me about how she did the makeup for Francesca's wedding, and she was saying one of her favorite things is to do the makeup for a bride because it's so intimate and it's so special, getting your skin ready and looking beautiful for such a sort of intimate day. So Kate, very, very quickly, 3 words, I've cut you down to 3 words, to describe your signature makeup style.
That is impossible.
Okay.
I'm just being silly. I think it's hard to say really, because I've been doing this for so long, and also over so many different can you hear me properly? Over so many different eras, and I think that my signature style is always, I guess it's sort of evolved over the years, and I think now it's just basically, I would say, to enhance someone's genuine, natural beauty, I would say.
Yes.
And within that, I can do many different ways of doing that. Do you know what I mean?
Thank you.
From day to night.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our next guest is Dr. Yusra Al-Mukhtar. Dr. Yusra has 2 clinics, one in London and one in Liverpool. Straight away, I'm just thinking of the trains, and that alone is just, sounds like a lot. And she has the most incredible roster of treatments on offer, all drawing on your experience, Dr. Yusra, in non-surgical facial aesthetics. From the last 14 years of practicing, as well as that, she's a fully trained dental surgeon, and she's so well known for her work in non-surgical rhinoplasty, and she's also appreciated for her ability to keep our faces looking harmonious. She's often found training other practitioners in medical aesthetics. And I have the same question for you that I had for Kay. What would you say is your signature style?
I'm not limited to 3 words. Okay, great.
Well, you actually are. I just forgot to say it.
Okay. Then I would say harmony.
Harmony,
Okay.
yes.
It's all about facial harmony. We want our patients to look good, not look done. Look fresh, not look fake. So that's a big one. I'd say subtle and significant. empowering transformation. So, patients often come to us for full face rejuvenation. And I always say if they're coming in for hamster cheeks or trout pouts, I'm the wrong shop. The idea, the ethos, what I want to do is to make my patients look incredible, but look like the best version of themselves. So we don't create clones of each other. And I'd say unique, respecting the patients holistically. And that means really, truly treating every layer of the face, because I don't think it makes sense to fill a face like an eclair. You have to ensure that the face is harmonious and that we're treating the deepest layers, the most superficial layers, the muscle layer, because every layer of the face needs to be in the same decade. So,
in the same decade,
Yeah.
that's a very good way of looking at it. Thank you. Our final guest is Mr. Rajiv Grover. And he is a former president of the British Association of Aesthetic Plastic Surgeons. He's a consultant plastic surgeon specializing in facial aesthetic surgery, particularly facelifts, neck lifts, and eyelid surgery. And I have to say, earlier this week, I think it was, or maybe it was last week when we were having a call, it was a Zoom call. And the whole time I was talking to you, Rajiv, I started noticing my hands leaning into my face and supporting it as if, what would I look like with a facelift? Now, your bio, Rajiv says he is as known as much for his artistry as much for his surgical precision. And I'm going to ask you at this point, Rajiv, which artist is that? Because, there are some artists whose creative expression I would want in a facelift, and others, Picasso, for example, that I'd be a little bit more worried about. So what would you say, Rajiv, defines your signature style?
Well, surgery is quite a major thing to undertake. So people want something worthwhile and significant. And it's got to be worthwhile in terms of the physical journey, the emotional journey, and the financial journey. But there are 3 buts. But it needs to look natural. But it needs to keep looking like themselves. But it needs to look like they were never touched with a knife. But we come back to where we started. It's got to be a significant and worthwhile improvement. Otherwise, it's a waste of money. And I'm from the north of England. We like value for money.
Good to know. I feel like we'd be safe in any of their hands. So I'm going to start with questions to UK. And we are on a bit of a time frame today. So for the first time ever, I'm actually going to use a timer because I know Kay really well. And like me, she likes
What
to
are you
talk.
saying, Kathleen?
So you've got 9 minutes, okay, to get
great.
through these questions, starting. But the first question, Kay, is when you work with red carpet celebrities, is it a fair assumption to say that if you're in the public eye, you're under more pressure than the rest of us to always look perfect? Or has that changed over the years?
That hasn't changed at all. You are under extreme pressure because movie stars, for instance, it's their job to be sort of movie stars, and then they are human beings, and human beings do look different than movie stars in our minds, and a movie star is a fantasy. It's the imagination, and they're responsible. A woman is responsible for basically providing the advertising and the press for the entire film. And imagine how much a film costs. So an actress is hired often for their beauty as well as their talent, and they have to be on the cover of all of the newspapers, over Instagram, over social media. So I never ever forget the importance of how they look. And I think for me the greatest kind of enjoyment and pleasure I get from my job is the pressure to actually achieve that, because I find that the biggest buzz, because it separates the men from the boys, being able to put makeup on and create someone really, really hyper real that doesn't look fake, who can also be under the sort of observation of terrible photography, terrible paparazzi photography, terrible flash,
Those
and they're
bright
not 15 years old.
Yes.
When you're 15 years old, you can get away with anything. You don't need good lighting, but lighting is more important than makeup or anything. So yes, they are under huge scrutiny, and that hasn't changed.
And presumably what makes your work easier is that with so many of the sort of actors and celebrities that grace those red carpets, you have a very close relationship with them, don't you? So,
Yeah.
so that, I think straight away, if you're sitting in your chair and you've got that relationship,
Yeah.
you're feeling, you trust that person, you're feeling more confident. But it's a lot to deliver on both sides. I can
It
imagine it gets
is.
quite stressful.
It is. Well, I think because I was doing it from such a young age, I was thrown in. So when I was 16 years old, I was dealing with not only people who were sort of much more experienced than me, but they were much older than me. You know, I was not in a position where I felt like anything other than a child at 16 years old. I was literally, I was at school yesterday, you know, and I was still in my head a child. So to convince myself that I had an authority with somebody's face was not something that I learned easily, and it was not natural to me. It was very, very, very uncomfortable, and I think I just developed a kind of mask that I could manage to deal with it. You know, and I think it's like learning to swim. You're thrown in, you learn to swim. It was like that. Yeah.
I've been really lucky because you've done my makeup before. There was a really lovely day as a beauty editor when we all got our portraits taken by a really good photographer called Nick Haddow, and it was all arranged by Chanel. It was like a big kind of press trip, not trip, but a press treat for us all. And Kay, because you are an ambassador for Chanel, did our makeup. And so I know from being on the receiving end that you really can transform with the right makeup. What's your golden rule when applying makeup? And if we can talk about age just for a second, into our 50s, what should we all be doing less of or more of?
Gosh, that's a hard one. Well, I would say keep modifying your makeup, keep modifying your skincare. Through your decades, it changes and you change, and it's very important to not get stuck into a particular style. Just as with your wardrobe, you wouldn't wear the same clothes necessarily as you did 10 years ago. We change, and there's nothing wrong with that. We're lucky to be, you know, going through these changes and still be here. But there's certain things that you need to watch, and that is always to keep your skin looking healthy. And if I'm trying to be succinct, what was your question again?
My question was, what should we be doing more of or less of as we
I think we
get
should
older?
be using less dense foundations, if that's your thing. I think it's very wise to change your foundation and concealer every decade or every 5 years. Modify it as you get older, and always put your makeup on in daylight. Always.
And what, you're a Chanel makeup brand ambassador. Years ago, I remember you and I think you came round to the house, and do you remember, I don't know if you remember this, I had a drawer full of makeup samples. Do you remember that?
Yes,
and
I
you
do,
pulled out all the
yes,
things that I
yeah.
didn't need
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
And
That's one of my
and
favourite
That was
things.
so much fun.
It's so much fun.
I would like to be able to do that again with Kay.
It's so much fun.
She
Through the
doesn't know this, but I
keyhole.
did actually
Yeah.
bring my makeup bag with me,
Oh, I'll do
but
it
the edited
later.
version. But what 3 things should we all carry in our makeup bags?
Concealer, eyelash curlers, lip liner.
Lip liner?
Yeah, I love lip liner.
More than a lip balm or a lipstick?
No, lip balm is good, I guess, but that's more like skincare, like hand cream.
What shade are you wearing today? Do you know?
Jones Road.
Ah.
They do a really good lip liner. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Now, there's a huge difference between what we see when we are close and personal to famous people to what we see on social media. But not even famous people, everybody. That applies to us all. We always put our best face forward, don't we? But people generally, I think now, are more open to having work done than they used to be. And obviously, you're very close to them. You can see what people have done, and they tell you what they've done and who they're seeing and so on to get it done. What treatments, in your opinion, are worth getting done? What should we be excited about?
Thinking about my clients, I think the thing that I've seen that works the best is consistency, very much so. But I think like lasers, consistent, not, the one that's the red light one. Because I was
Yes.
talking to Julianne Moore, and because I work with her a lot, I can really tell when I haven't seen her for a while exactly what her skin is like in comparison to the last time I saw her. and I've got a very photographic memory for skin, obviously, because that's what I do. And I really, really notice a difference when she's had the red light on every day, when a makeup artist, for instance, has been using that every day when she's been doing a film.
Do you mean just like an LED mask at home?
No,
a red light mask?
This isn't my area. This is her area.
Okay, we're going to come back to this.
But all I know is that whatever Morag Ross, the amazing Morag Ross Oscar winner, amazing woman, she uses it. She used it on Julianne with Marianne George. And I said to Julianne, wow, your skin looks amazing. And also, she also has incredible, the guy called Fabrizio in New York. She goes to see him regularly.
What's his name again?
Fabrizio, and I can't remember his second name.
We're all going to be Googling that and booking in.
She's always talking about him on her feed. And he is amazing, and he puts the red light on her and gives her a lot of massage. So basically, it's rather like working out or using skincare. It's consistency. Yeah. And also Morpheus 8 is very, very good. She's had that done, and she loves it. Yeah.
Sorry, just fighting with my glasses here. Okay, Kay, you have always been ahead of your time. What are you predicting will be big in the near future when it comes to the aesthetics of aging?
I think it will get better and better. I think it will, the technology.
What do you mean by better and better?
It will look more and more natural, because I don't know any woman who would say no to a facelift if she didn't look like she'd had a facelift. The reason, apart from money, of course, most women can't afford a facelift. But if everyone could afford a facelift, the reason people aren't having them is because you're choosing between looking old and looking unnatural with a facelift. So very few people look like they haven't had work done when they've had work done.
Well, we're going to talk a lot about that shortly. But thank you, Kay. Can I just say, bang on, 9 minutes.
Oh, well done.
See, I'm improving.
You are. I'm very, very impressed. So, Dr. Yusra, tough act to follow now with the time factor, but 1 second, sorry, glasses. Yes. So, while researching today's talk, I was obviously checking out your website, and the amount of treatments you offer is staggering. There's lots there. Everything from porcelain veneers to cool sculpting to treatments for excessive sweating and migraines. How educated is your clientele, and how do you help someone find out what they need? Like when you're faced with, I could have ticked pretty much every box. How do you help people to choose what they need?
First of all, I don't do all of those treatments, so I have a team.
No, you'd be pretty busy, and going up to Liverpool and London and all the rest of it.
And Manchester, we've just opened a new clinic in Manchester. So I think it's really important that I work within my scope of practice, and my expertise is in the head and neck area. So I have a plastic surgeon in the clinic, I have a dentist in the clinic, I have a gynecologist. I don't do it all, and I'm really proud of them. And actually, we were awarded Best Clinic of the UK last year, and Best Clinic Team. So
that's fantastic.
That's them and their work. But what that allows us to do then is actually do what we do a lot in the NHS, which is work in a multidisciplinary team. And what sometimes happens in isolated clinics when you're working on your own is that in medicine we become hyper-specialized about a specific area. So you have skin specialists, you have plastic surgeons, you have gynecologists, you have cardiovascular surgeons, cardiologists who are specialized in an organ, as if our bodies are compartmentalized. And that's something that I've pushed back on, partly from being a patient myself. When I was 19, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. And I've become really passionate about making sure that we look after our patient holistically and understand them holistically. And so when they're coming in, I have a cohort of patients that are different from each other. So I have the educated consumer who comes in, who follows us, who listens to, I have a podcast called Face Facts Podcast. They've listened to all of that. They've done their research. They know all about me. They know all about the plastic surgeon. They know us, and they know what they want, what they like, what they don't like. And they come in really educated, which is a great cohort of patients to look after. And then you have patients who come in who are concerned about a feature. So they might come in and say, I hate my nose, I hate my eye bags, I really don't like my jowls. They're feature driven, but they don't know the right treatment for them. And then I have patients who come in who are more emotionally motivated. So they might come in and say, I look tired. I look in the mirror and I look haggard, or my husband thinks I'm angry even when I'm not. And that's really true also of perimenopausal, menopausal patients. And they're starting to notice facial changes. They don't like it. They don't know what to do about it. And they want to look more awake, but not necessarily done, right? And then I have patients who are unfortunately misinformed because social media is a double-edged sword. And patients are being influenced by what they see on social media and TikTok, and half of what they think they know is wrong, unfortunately. So we have to go through that and help guide them and unlearn the misinformation. So I have a range of patients, and the most important thing for me is that I sit with them, and I spend an hour with my patients during the consultation. We go through everything. We do a skin analysis. We do a 3D Vectra imaging so that they see themselves in 3D, because the reality is I only see myself in a photograph or in a mirror, so I see a 2D image of myself. And that's true of our patients. They only ever see themselves as 2D. But if we can enable and empower them to see their faces in 3D, then actually that consultation becomes a same-page meeting. We're speaking on the same page, and they're seeing what I'm seeing. And so we do a full face assessment, and it's educated. It's empowerment through education. And I explain to them the anatomy of the face, the fact that the face is 5 layers: skin, superficial fat, muscle, deep fat, bone. And facial aging happens in all 5 layers, so it's important that we're addressing all 5 layers. And a lot of people misunderstand and think that facial aging comes from volume loss or fat loss alone, and that's just not true. And then talk about their nutrition, their lifestyle, what other symptoms they might be going through. I have a large cohort of patients who are 35 to 55, who are maybe perimenopausal, menopausal, who also have other symptoms. Like they have overwhelm, they have anxiety, they're not sleeping well, they have gynecological concerns, they're mood swings, they want to kill their partner, they've got irritability towards their children. These are normal physiological changes.
What's the treatment for wanting to kill your partner? I'm just curious.
Sometimes HRT, right?
Oh, okay.
And also, I think, look, men also go through andropause, which is a reduction in testosterone. At the same time, women are going through perimenopause, which is a reduction in estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. There's psychological symptoms, there are physiological symptoms, and actually knowing that these symptoms are normal is helpful for both man and woman. Now, I'm not a gynecologist. That's why I have a gynecologist in my clinic. So if I'm seeing that they need support, then they're getting a referral to my gynecologist. And often they don't know. They go, yeah, how did you know that he's so annoying and I'm not sleeping well? And I go, have you considered that this might be happening? And so actually, I feel like my role is also as a health coach, and I'm investigating what else is going on for them and guiding them into which treatment might be best, whether it's treatment with myself, doing non-surgical treatments, or referring them to the plastic surgeon for surgical treatments, because it's important also that they understand the limitations of each treatment and the benefits of each treatment.
And that's really interesting, because that's exactly what the beauty triangle is about. It's finding that sweet spot between what we think of as a sort of the surface beauty with what is going on everywhere else, whether it's gynecological or emotional or a combination of all of those things. Did you think when you set out that that's what you would be doing, that you would be looking at all of these things 100%. In that holistic way?
When I started my clinic 7 years ago, the first thing that I did was put my mission statement on the wall, which says that we want to create radiance on the outside and wellness on the inside. So I built it with that in mind, because it didn't exist. 7 years ago, I think our industry was very vanity driven, and now we're moving rapidly away from being focused on vanity to being focused on wellness. But I knew that because, as I say, I came from a background of being treated as a set of symptoms when I was 19 years old, diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. None of the specialists were talking to each other. It was very compartmentalized. There wasn't this understanding and the importance of holistic care. And something Alice has heard me say before is you can't treat mind without treating body, and you can't treat body without understanding mind. So I think we have a duty to be honest with our patients and assess them holistically and explain to them anatomically what's happening, and then guide them into the right treatment that is right for them. It's all about personalized care. So when I built my clinic, I built it with 5 treatment suites: the aesthetic suite, the skin suite, the wellness suite, or the sculpt suite, and the smile suite, which is the dental clinic. So yeah, I knew that from day one.
So we have time for one more question, and
Sure.
I really want to know, I know this is more about vanity than anything else, but what are the sort of aesthetic treatments that you are really enjoying to treat your patients with now?
It depends on the patient. I mean, I do a lot of profile balancing, which is non-surgical rhinoplasty and treatment of a weak chin called mandibular retrognathia. That gives an instant transformational change, and I have a big cohort of patients who come in with a concern about that particular feature.
So they want a more balanced looking face.
They want a more balanced profile, and that's a big part of my patients who come in and they want that big transformation. But those patients, I think, are, like I say, feature driven, but I have a whole host of patients who are who want facial harmony. So I call it full face rejuvenation. So that's from the hairline to here, we're rejuvenating. And too often I'm seeing kind of patients who are having lots of filler in their cheeks and their skin is not being looked after, or lots of filler in their face and their neck is not being looked after, the decolletage is not being looked after. So it's that full face approach that I love doing, but actually watching not just the physical change, but the emotional change is incredible to be a part of. I'm sure Rajiv will say this as well, is the treatments that we do have an ability to create a profound and positive impact on patients' quality of life, because when you don't feel like you look good, you don't show up as your best self at work or in your personal relationships. And the converse is true. When you're confident in how you look, we're giving patients back their power, and that is amazing.
So thank you so much for that. We're going to move on to Rajiv Grover now. Rajiv, Dr. Yusra touched on that in that last question a bit about, you know, the importance of balance and harmony in the face. And I really feel that, you know, as our consultant plastic surgeon on the panel, I feel like facelifts for a while were out of fashion, and yet now they seem to be in fashion, or am I wrong about that? Where would you say the modern facelift is today?
I think the traditional facelift did not have a good reputation because anatomically it was based on pulling the skin, when really the aging of the face is more about the shape of the face changing. And if you imagine that the skin of the face is like a bed cover, what really is the tissue that's aging and moving and changing shape is the SMAS, or the fat underneath. That's like the duvet. So just as overnight the bed cover and the duvet will slide down, if you were trying to make the bed by only pulling the bed cover, the duvet would still be stuck down the bottom. And that is more your traditional facelift. You're using tension on the bed cover to pull the duvet, meaning the skin to pull the SMAS. The real change has been the understanding that by going not, in fact, under the bed cover, but by going under the duvet and pulling the two of them together, you are rejuvenating in a more natural way, which is that you're putting back where things have come from, the actual volume itself. And if you go back even to the artistic descriptions of Leonardo da Vinci, he was teaching young artists what is it that makes somebody look old. And that's why when you see paintings like Matisse, he can draw a face and you can tell immediately if it's young, beautiful, old, and there's only 3 lines on the page. Because the key thing is face shape. And shape is determined by volume, not by wrinkles in the skin. So if you're really trying to make something look younger and natural, you've got to rejuvenate by moving the deeper tissue. And I think that's why technically the modern facelift has improved. And the uptake of that facelift has improved because of social media. Because, you know, a while ago, the only way that you knew what a facial rejuvenation procedure looked like was because Alice might write about it in the Daily Mail, and you would see an example of Ultherapy, Thermage, Morpheus, the occasional facelift. But now what's happening with social media is people themselves are posting their own treatment journeys. So people can see what it's like to have a treatment and what results people are getting all over the world. You can be sitting in Scunthorpe and following a patient or a surgeon performing surgery in Beverly Hills. So you're getting inside the practice and inside the patients and seeing the real results. And I think the results of good surgery are getting better and people are able to see them. And like you said, education is empowerment. And when you're empowered, you can make a better choice than maybe just reading what you were seeing in the Daily Mail which, however good it was, you're getting a real expression of what people are actually going through.
Thank you. Now, you mentioned that those techniques have changed over the years, and we're not, if we were going to get a facelift, we would be less likely to end up with a wind tunnel effect facelift. But how do you tell when a patient is ready to have that treatment? I mean, it's not more than a treatment, it's surgery. It needs to be taken seriously. We need to prepare for it. We need to know what the aftercare, it's not a lunchtime 5-minute fix. So how do you know when that patient is ready, or how do they know when they're ready?
In theory, it could be very difficult. In practice, it's very simple. It's simple on 2 levels. It's simple because anatomically, you've got to be treating gravity. There are different methods of aging, and one of the things I find very helpful is to ask patients to bring pictures of their younger self to the consultation, because I want to work out if they've aged by gravity, volume loss, bone loss, combination of the following. If they've not had gravitational descent, if there's not been some structural laxity in the face, there's nothing to lift. And if it's just been volume loss, then Yusra will be able to add volume very delicately in the right place. If there's been bone loss, you might have emphasis of the marionette, which can give you something that looks like a jowl, but it's not really a jowl, because when you put your fingers on the smash and you try and move it, there's no laxity. So basically, if there's no structural laxity, there's no reason to be lifting. But then on top of all of that, there is still a grey area as to who you treat. And I use a very simple rule of thumb. If somebody comes and sits in my office, I tell them straight up the front, I say, we're going to go through your medical history. Let's decide if you're fit and healthy to have something done, because if you're not, then that's a red flag. If we do find that you're fit and healthy, let's go through how you've aged and see if it's making a worthwhile difference. And worthwhile difference is defined as if I would do it for a member of my family, I give you the same answer. It's very simple. If you ever want to get the right answer out of a surgeon, if it's a varicose vein, heart surgery, neurosurgery, facelift, you put the surgeon on the spot and you'd say, if this was your mum, what would you do? And they always give you the right answer.
That's really good advice, because one of the things that we find hard is to find the right surgeon, particularly when there's so many people talking on social media. I once interviewed an amazing journalist. She was in her 90s, and she was called Joan Cron, and she wrote for Allure magazine, and she had interviewed just about every plastic surgeon. So she would say to me that all her friends would come to her and say, well, which one shall I see to get my facelift? And she made it a policy. She would never recommend any. She would say, you have to do the research yourself. What advice would you give us today in finding a surgeon to suit us?
Well,
Obviously, we have a very good one here.
No, I'm not talking about myself, but the key thing is the old-fashioned routes of recommendation, referral are very good. These days, you have the opportunity to look at social media. Social media is very educative, and you can see results. You can follow patients' recoveries. I don't do social media myself. I don't have patients that would want to be on social media, and I don't particularly want to be on social media, so what do I show? Nothing. But if you do look on social media, surgeons are never going to show their bad results, so you're only going to get filtered the good results. So I do think a recommendation or a referral is good. Only about 0.1% of the population that have cosmetic treatments are having surgery. A lot more of them are having non-surgical treatments. A lot more of them are having beauty treatments, makeup treatments. And actually, Yusra, Kay, you will be seeing the results of many surgeries. You will have many people sitting on your couch asking you, who do you recommend? And it's very rare that you wouldn't see the work of many surgeons. You would know good work. So I often get very kindly referred patients by lovely colleagues who have seen many people's surgeries and seen my surgery. So I think if you go for recommendation and referral, that's very good. There are also criteria of qualifications. People need to be qualified enough that they are usually a member of the British Association of Aesthetic Plastic Surgeons. We have several presidents in the audience, presidents-to-be, and that is a very good listing of people that are adequately qualified on the specialist register. But then you have to go and meet the surgeon. because this is not a small thing to be doing, and you want to go on a journey with that surgeon and know that that surgeon is there for you if things don't go exactly according to plan. It's like if you're climbing a mountain. If you were about to go and climb as a novice Kilimanjaro, Everest, you'd go with a guide. If you didn't feel you got on well with the guide, maybe you wouldn't be going up Kilimanjaro that day with the guide. So you've got to find the right person that you gel with, that you know is going to have your back covered, and that you like, and that you trust with the aesthetic that you're looking for.
So would you climb a mountain with this person is maybe the question we need to ask ourselves. I think that's a good question. Thank you. So I want to ask, sadly, we're nearly out of time, which is maddening because there's a million other questions I would love to ask all three of our amazing panelists today. But my final question for all of you, I'm going to ask each of you the same thing, is this panel talk was called Face Value. What is the value of a face? Okay.
That's a hard question.
It's quite hard.
Yeah. The value of a face, I would say your face is your expression to the outside world. It's your expression of who you really are to the outside world. So it's the very center of everything that you're saying about yourself to others and how you feel about yourself. And how honest you want to be with others and yourself. I mean, it's the ultimate giveaway is your face.
It is.
Right?
Thank you. Dr. Yusra, what would you say?
Really difficult question. It's like saying, what's the value of your heart?
Yes.
Your face is how you connect with others. Ultimately, this is how we are communicating with each other. It's eye contact, it's smiling, it's micro expressions, it's facial expressions. So we can't just diminish it into a commercial value. But we know that actually when patients, like I said earlier, when they look good, they feel good, and they show up as their best self at work or professionally or personally. But I think also it's your identity. It's your self-worth. I have 3 children, and I can tell you, after I birthed my first child, I aged. And when I looked in the mirror, I saw those facial aging patterns, and I thought, who am I? And it changed my self-esteem. It impacted my self-esteem. So I don't think we can talk about just the face as this 2D or 3D area that is there for us to communicate. But actually, it's how we feel about ourselves. It's how we show up every single day. It's the bounce in our step. It's our identity. And I think we need to, and I'm glad that there is a stigma, although patients have always had a stigma associated with having treatments, that stigma is going down, and people are unapologetically now accessing care, whether it's non-surgical treatments, makeup, or plastic surgery, because they understand and recognize that it's their self-worth and their self-esteem, and that's not a small thing.
No.
So
Thank you. And Rajiv, what would you say?
So I'm going to split it up into 3 groups. There's the
Okay.
society,
Yes.
as a surgeon, and as me as an individual. For society, it does define who we are. You know, the most powerful social platform in the world is Facebook. Mm-hmm. We put on a brave face. We face the world. So it does define us as a personality and a character because we show emotion through it. As a surgeon, it's the one part of the body that you're operating on that is not static. It's showing emotion, expression. It's the most challenging thing to operate on. I say that operating on someone's face is the ultimate trust. One of my colleagues once said, it doesn't matter if you talk to a pair of breasts, they never answer back, whereas the face does.
Okay.
And as an individual, I can remember one of my mentors, French surgeon Daniel Marchak, saying to me, Rajiv, you'll only understand the value of your face when you start to lose it. And as I look in the mirror in the morning, I say to Daniel, thank you, Daniel, that day has come.
Oh, well, I don't think any of us have lost face today. You've all been such an incredible panel. I would like to thank, first of all, our audience for being such an amazing audience listening. I can see from your faces you've been taking it all in, and thank you. I hope that was interesting. I'm sorry it couldn't be longer, and I'm sorry we don't have time for questions. But thank you also to Francesca, I can see you over there, for organising this incredible festival. And thank you to Rajiv, to Dr. Yusra, and to Kay. If we could have a round of applause for them, I think they've really earned it.
thank you to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen.